How's it going, YouTubers? This is bigSHow, theGod. So this is just my thoughts of a God project. Topic today, accountability. So if you see my other streams, I quite like this word, accountability. So I got up this morning and went through my routine, as you guys know, and knew I wanted a topic for this morning. So I thought I'd spend a couple of minutes just journaling what I wanted to have for this topic of accountability and how I would explain it and how I think about the word. And so I did some quick fire words for it of how I achieve accountability or how I process it and what the structure looks like. And it kind of works in with how it's come about from structure, but from my mental mindset. It sort of just became a word that I would be able to use. I guess I didn't like the word before because I couldn't see why I'd want to be accountable to anything. It seemed like restrictive. Seems restrictive. Whereas what I find, me personally, I find structure and accountability less restrictive and encourages growth. So I have structure, accountability. I have structure. I'll just put that up there. Can't see much. And so to me, it requires consistency. You have to review, reflect, history, measure your scientific things based on facts, based on evidence. History, I mean by history is having something to analyze to, some type of historic data. How's that? That might be better. Historic data, let's do that. And to me, that leads to accountability, because accountability is probably a target that would slowly become more and more accountable, depending on the subject matter. It's a bit like fitness, I think. It's a moving target. So a lot of that sounded very, what's the word? Process driven. That's a word I'll use. So all that seemed just like it's just a process, zeros and ones, like a data kind of concept, right? Math, data driven analysis. And then, people start to think that's just that's all there is to it. There's no emotion to it, right? Which is, for me, I started there, but it was the emotion that was holding me back. So as I touched on earlier, I didn't like the word accountability. It gave me a feeling of restrictiveness when I theoretically thought about it. And it came from that type of thing of being told what to do, don't like being told what to do, don't like being held accountable, I guess, ultimately, which the don't like part is an emotional perspective as well. A bit of that. So if you have a low self-esteem and low emotional sort of accountability and awareness, it makes sense you wouldn't want to be accountable to anything. So that was it was almost like a bit of a turning point for me when I was going through reflecting on things and making some small changes in my structure in my day led me to something that worked long term. Because the reality was, with the accountability side, and even if I wanted to do something, I wouldn't be consistent. I wouldn't stick to it. I wouldn't be motivated, So so failure and all those sorts of things started seeping in. You create some goal, you think you're going to make some progress to it, and you fail. You don't. And so avoidance comes into that too, right? I don't want to get back there. Not now. I mean, I wouldn't want to do this podcast if I had just slept in for the last 4 days and sit here and go, I just want to lie. And horribly, lying came into the system as well. Prior to accountability, lying's lessened. I actually spent a lot of time making sure I'm not lying, because I'm so biased and I was so, from my perspective, good at it. I could get away with it by lying. Most people probably didn't believe me anyway, but I believed it myself. And the reality was people just didn't care. I don't care when someone's lying and I think they're lying. Just because I don't have you up about it doesn't mean I don't think you're lying. I just don't care. I keep moving, right? So so you end up living in this world of your own bubble and your own ego, So anyway, so if you look at the structure, the consistency, the review, the history, the data analysis, the historic data, and you're measuring, and you start having what worked for me to keep me accountable was to do the daily stuff, the monthly stuff, the weekly stuff, and then relook at it, reassess it, and keep the momentum. But like I think a good one for me was weight loss, or quitting alcohol out of my life, not having alcohol at all. And the journey I went on through those required how I did it as a whole was probably accountability. It was probably the biggest one. And it's self-accountability. I'm not accountable to anybody else. It's just myself. And those two there helped. Well, accountability helped me formalize what I had done and what I was doing on a consistent basis, so I could then use that word accountability. Until then, I couldn't. Not with any real assertion anyway, or conviction. Whereas these days, I'm fairly comfortable with someone challenging me on my accountability. In fact, I encourage it. I want it, because I think it helps me see any other blind spots. I'm constantly looking for it, if I'm honest. So it feeds itself. motivates me. So yeah, so you got the structure part, but the piece I wanted to highlight here is the emotional growth that's required, that was required, or say is still required, to have accountability, to shape change, to move towards satisfaction, happiness, success, emotional growth, emotional stability. So in a way, that sort of me learning knowledge, me doing the process, understanding that, reflecting all the way through, it didn't dawn on me the importance of the emotional part through that. It wasn't until I read a couple of books, interestingly enough, through business, to, I think it was more, I was doing it and I had grown emotionally through the processes, because I had to face a lot of these demons, and I was sharing that, how I didn't feel good about this, and was open and honest more, but I didn't know how to phrase it. I didn't have the vocabulary that expressed what I was going through at the time, things like self-awareness. So I guess learning some and reading some books, getting some ways that I can say those types of words and value them, that enables me to speak that on that now, because I was doing it already. I just didn't know how to explain it. And then once I was able to frame it and show that was important, because I'd gotten to here a level with the processes, with the consistency, with the structure, and I was able to say, man, I'm being more responsible, I'm doing this, and that equals responsibility. It didn't account in the data and the structure what emotional stuff I'd gone through, and emotional growth from having difficult conversations, either with myself, with, feeling like a failure, looking at my history and going, Jesus, and realizing whether I was my weight or how much time I'd lost on drinking and how it had affected family and all those things. They're all emotional joints to it, right? And then even when I would say I wasn't avoiding it, well, there was stuff you weren't being consistent, which had an emotional component to it. But I didn't have the awareness to know that was there to that level. So I was getting progress, but it got me so far. So learning and having the self-awareness of what's going on emotionally for me has now enabled me to have that extra tier and take off, so that the practicing and having a difficult conversation gets ugly. I feel it, they don't feel it, and I try to practice having that with someone, but you don't feel great afterwards. That person who I'm practicing on is confused and doesn't know where the fuck you're coming from. So I have to risk that type of outcome. Not fun to keep doing. So I used to practice it on people that are around me, or easier subject matter to try and get, but I wouldn't have the same emotional investment, so you kind of got to go to the the ones that you're feeling the most anxious about. An example would be your boss, say, someone who's in charge of you, or someone who you perceive as in charge, and you're trying to impress or make sure you have a job, get paid, and all that sort of stuff, or be considered for other things, or be not fired. How's that? And to have difficult conversations with that person. And in the moment when you're having a difficult conversation, you're anxious and you just want to get rid of it. So you either give up or not give up. You either change subject so that you don't have to deal with that, back to the avoidance, or you never really say it because the fear, the anxiety, all that sort of stuff, and you leave and you sit with it anyway, right? And you look for another reason to go back. Because part of my skill set would be to minimize the issue rather than bring it up. Or I could even over-exaggerate the subject matter, which would then lose its context because it'd be an over-exaggeration. So I was capable of doing both. And both of them would lead me to not feeling too good afterwards. I'd suffer for it for a while and just get more frustrated. So now in a difficult after practicing more and more difficult conversations for me. So remember, other people may not find these difficult or whatever. I'm just stating that these are difficult. And that has its own kind of background to it, or its own layer. Sometimes I have difficult conversations, and I would suggest it to them that this is difficult, and they'd be confused. Like, what's so difficult about it? And I think, well, that was probably me. And so what I mean by that is I can clearly see you're agitated. I can clearly see you're upset. You've said you're agitated, you're upset. And yet when I say, well, this is uncomfortable, you're saying it's not. And so I definitely think that's something I would have said. And so then I'm having conversations with people that don't have the same perspective as me, which is common, but may not have done so, may not understand what I mean by the emotional, the self-awareness that I have in the moment that this seems uncomfortable, and what I mean by that. It's not a slant on you. It's not a slant on me. It's just sharing what I'm feeling. Didn't say to change anything. It's just an observation. If I'm observing that you're uncomfortable, it's an observation of myself that I'm uncomfortable. So that we're expressing the truth as best we can. And that can be taken different ways. So yeah. So let's try and get, I think with the emotional growth piece, I think that's been of late. If I look at my last sort of 6 to 8 months, when I look over my graphs and journaling stuff and the way I'm writing, the impact that's had is just massive for me. I very seldom now have built up stuff that I need to get off. My mood swings are still there. I get annoyed. I had the wife last night, actually. Makes a great dinner. It's all good. She's been making my dinner for, how old am I? Since I was 25 years, give or take. The dinners are great. making me dinner. And I don't know if everybody's like this, but hey, whatever. She makes my dinner most times. She might say something like, "Oh, do you want some more, or would you like another lot or something? Leftovers. Let me get you some more." There has not been one time in 20-something years that I've said no, definitely not. Yet the question is asked me almost weekly. 3 or 4 times a week, right? And so last time I'm sitting there and I don't know, maybe I was focusing on some stupid thing that I was doing. And she comes in and gives me some big story and wants to know if I want some more. And I maybe I come across sort of grumpy and said, well, what a stupid question that is, of all the stupid questions. Yeah. And off she went and got a bit annoyed with me. You can tell. So I worked it out. Wasn't hard when the dinner got sort of plonked on the table kind of thing. No. And every other time it's been like an explanation of what's on the plate and all sort of, it's got this on it, it's been seasoned, it has this and that. It was just juke out. So, good grief. So off she goes. I ate it, thought about it to myself. But okay. So I walk out and confront her. Firstly, by complimenting the food. And she's, all right. Well, let's work through this. And once we got into it, and I listened to her, yeah, that's true. I did do that. And I apologize for that. Probably didn't need to do that at that moment. Seems to matter. And it does. You acknowledge it. And I'm honest about that. I try to be. You can't, my reaction is my reaction. And then I explained from a perspective was the 30-year thing. You've asked me every day, when have I ever said, no, I don't want any? When? And then we laughed, because it was a true statement. And that's the process seemed to be winded over. But then, that's not totally true either on her behalf. When I thought about some more, I go, well, hold on. You've snapped sometimes when she has brought leftovers because you're trying not to eat that level or that much. So, it's complicated. It's complicated, right? For someone to be as serving as she is, like caring and wanting to give me stuff, and then have that person be annoyed anyway when you're doing something that they need to do, So it's a hard case. So anyway, I guess that's all I had to say today regarding accountability. I feel like I explained that in some few roundabout ways, but I did want to get across the emotional part to it, emotional growth, for what I think accountability, what requires to have higher levels of accountability. I think the emotional part is the piece that I would consider working on. I mean, you need all of it. It's like a lot of things. You need the process. You need to be doing. You got to be doing it. You got to be practicing it. You got to be measuring and that sort of stuff. And you got to be consistent. Once you have that in place, you might find that the work that you want to do on yourself, the tools to have self-awareness, to look at your why you do certain things, why you don't do certain things, what is really at the crux of it, from your mental side to your, I mean, you can have the physical as well, but from a mental side to it, if you can establish a level of growth, emotional growth, even from appreciating things a bit more. You know, I appreciate everything I'm able to do more than I ever have. So I like it more, so I want to do it more. And so boredom becomes less through accountability. Boredom as a word I'd use often, that I'm bored. I mean, I have that type of feeling on days when I'm sort of in my lulls, but it's reduced a lot more through accountability and even through self-awareness. I can say, are you bored? Because why? Why are you bored? Okay, so that's boredom can be an emotional phrase that you're attaching to something. See, if you work on your emotional self-awareness and you're appreciating everything, then you're bored less as well from a sticking point. Oh, I'm bored, so I'm going to go do this. Yeah, I'm feeling bored, what should I do? Oh, I know, I'll go and play video games for the rest of the night. With structure and accountability, would normally go, oh, I'm feeling a bit bored. I look at my calendar and I go, oh, I've got that coming up. Oh, I've got that coming up. Oh, cool. Oh, yeah, actually, I might do some extra notes. There's an extra couple of tasks I might do. And not all the tasks are progressive tasks, but just some tasks. Oh, actually, I'll look into that. And video games does come up. Actually, that takes some time away. I'm looking at that. Feel really good. And I'll go play some video games. And my mind just drifts around that a bit. And then accountability brings me back. That I'm moved on from this and move over to that. So yeah. So I like that. I really like that accountability part, and with the emotional growth, and even from monthly. So I have my relationship list or my journaling list. Last night, as I mentioned, I was up for my pillar review, pillars. And I have to go through a reasonably structured analysis. But most of it, in the past reviews, I was looking at what I had and hadn't done. And then I would say why. And whereas now, because I've got the journaling added to that, and the journaling of when I work out and when I assess what I had, I've got emotion in there as quantifiable, what I was feeling and what I couldn't be bothered doing or was motivated to do. I did all this. I was excited about this or whatever it is, because that's in that on the ground level from a daily review. At the end of the month, when I do my monthly review, it's an abundance there. Like every pillar ended up having this emotional context to it. And with the emotional content to it, I reviewed it and analysed it based on the evidence I had and presented forward. My pillars, I went up in progress for me. Because I could not give a higher level for each of the pillars that I have. So I am fitter. I measured it. I'm fitter than I was before. I'm moving better than I've moved. Not ever, because I'm older, but I'm moving better than I was a year ago. And what's the reason for that? And yes, consistency and accountability are all there, but they were there then too. But then the realization of the emotions I was going through, so the times when I wasn't doing it, me having that self-awareness of going, hey, how come you're not going to go now? Oh, because I feel it. And then understanding the feelings of it, okay, but if you go, you'll be this. And you use the tools and practice that your emotions are only temporary. And then I would go. And while I was there, it wouldn't last as long if I failed. Okay? If I failed to me. So when you plan, you prepare, you structure, you say you're going to do something, you go do it, but while you're there, you don't do it to the level that you want it. That can have an emotional backfire because it brings you down. When it brings you down, your avoidance kicks in, so that you avoid that. And then what do you replace it with to get yourself back up? Playing video games for 4 hours, or moping around on something, or avoiding something else, or not doing anything else, right? Whereas you flip it over, you have the workout. It doesn't go quite well. You journal about it and be open and honest about it. You start preparing for tomorrow or later. Go, well, there's been times in the last months where I might have done a bit of elliptical, I'm a bit injured, feeling a bit whatever. I journal that afterwards. I then write down going, well, it's only lunchtime. I've just looked at my calendar. I've only got 3 or 4 projects on today. If I get stuck into that now, I finish that project or get it to a level that I want to, maybe I'll go and re-stretch and try a bit of a workout again at about 3 o'clock today, right? I've got a plan. Well, because of the self-awareness of the emotions that I wrote down. I looked at it and I reviewed it. So then I'll do the project that I'm into, whether it's meetings or working through the software, get that to a level, good or bad, makes no difference. But it's at a level. I would then go, oh, yeah, I said I'll go and work out again. Okay. Get myself up, get changed, go to the gym or go for a walk, run, hike, whatever the hell I've got planned based on what I know. The plan's there. I do that. And then the spin off to that is I feel brilliant again. So the swings are reduced dramatically, but then the other things that pop into existence become more likely. Everything's just an opportunity from there, rather than viewing that workout this morning as failing or less than, or staying in that kind of, fuck, I didn't have the quite same amount of energy, yet it was the same. Able to incorporate the emotion to it has triggered a overflow effect to where, and my assessment is, I was here, which was really a lot of growth for me to get here. And now I'm able to go up a notch just from identifying some more of that and practicing it and continuing to practice it. That seems to be the biggest bit. Because I get excited that if I continue on this path, it incorporates a lot of learning, which takes time, which takes adding it in and through my skepticism and motivating, I'm actually able to add that in and see value in it and continue it and keep it consistent, which I've managed to do for, with my nutrition, managed to keep that going for 5 years now. So the numbers get greater. I'm not saying it's perfect over those 5 years, but it's still well up here, and through some emotional awareness and adjustments, it gets a bit better. And so I'm confident that with some more practice and using these methods of tapping into that a little bit more, that I'm probably going to change some more. And the change will probably be emotion-based, probably. So yeah. All right, the gym's open. We've been in lockdown for the week. It's open today. Opened at 6 a.m. The wife wants to go, so I went for a real solid run yesterday. Did some exercising yesterday. Some planning. Then I'll just do weights today, which is going to be great.